Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my thoughts on a couple different 4K Blu-ray releases. Batman 1989 and the second Tim Burton Batman movie, Batman Returns. Now, I'm super late to the game when it comes to thoughts on these releases. In fact, these are pretty old releases, but that's the norm when it comes to whenever I decide to do these kind of videos. I wanted to do another video talking about Batman and Batman Returns, but I didn't really want to do separate reviews for either of them because I already did one for Batman 1989, which was quite lengthy, and my opinion on the movie really didn't change that much. So I just felt like it would just be kind of a waste of time and effort to do a whole other review of Batman 89 as much as I like that film. And I already did a video too where I talked about that and Batman Returns prior to the longer video where I talked about it, I believe for the anniversary. So it's one of those things where one of these days, yeah, I wouldn't mind talking about Batman Returns a little bit more in depth. Maybe I'll talk about it sometime in December because in a lot of ways it is a Christmas movie. But with this video, I just wanted to focus on the 4K discs themselves and what's on them and the quality of the 4K and the sound and the features and all the bells and whistles and that. Uh, if you want to hear my thoughts on Batman and Batman Returns, feel free to check out my video called Thoughts on Batman and Batman Returns and my review of Batman. You should be able to find all of them if you just do a quick search on my YouTube channel. And if I have any more moments where I stumble or kind of fumble through my words, I apologize. I just got done with kind of a pretty brutal week when it comes to scheduling and my hours at both my jobs. So I'm kind of in a recovery mode at the moment. But I wanted to put a little bit of content out there for you. And I feel that this is a good opportunity to do that without expending or really exhausting a lot of my energy. So before I get around to talking about the discs, I want to give a shout out to Jonathan, a longtime friend and subscriber of mine who sent me these as gifts. I really appreciate it. So Batman 89, I did not want to get this release because I read some reviews of this version of the film that I did not really find to be that assuring. For instance, there were a lot of screenshots that were shared that talked about how much the color timing was changed from the theatrical, or what I thought was the theatrical, but really it was the home video release and not the theatrical version of the film, because in actuality, the color timing is closer to the theatrical version of the movie, which I thought was really interesting. And I also read reviews talking about how they changed the sound editing. So there were sound effects like gunshots and some other things that were more modernized for this release. And they took away the old timey gunshots that were in the theatrical version and the previous versions of the film. And so that made me leery. So you have the color timing is off, and then the sound design, sound editing. So I didn't even really plan on getting this release. But I'm glad that I was sent this release as a gift, because otherwise I probably never would have got it unless it was super cheap. And this release I thought was surprisingly good. In terms of the picture quality, I don't think the color timing was that much of an issue, especially now that I know that it's closer to the theatrical version of the movie, which is the way that Tim Burton and a lot of the other people involved with the production intended for the film to be seen. And this is definitely an upgrade over any of the other previous Blu-rays, including the Diamond Lux edition, because of the fact that it's a remaster of the actual film print. It's not a remaster of a um, film. I'm trying to. I don't know the techniques. I don't know the technical names for these things, but I know that the previous releases of Batman were based off of old masters that were intended for 720p formats. So they were intended for DVD and Blu-ray. They were not intended for anything above that. So some of the transfers were okay. They were pretty solid for the time, but there was some room for improvement in terms of detail, in terms of a lot of the aspects of cinema that you really don't see fully in lower resolution. So in 4K, though, you get a much more film vibe. Like it really looks closer to a 35 millimeter print, which is the intent. It is cleaned up. It does have some DNR, not anything that's that particularly distracting, at least not for me personally. And I felt like a lot of the other things, like the black levels, were fine. And the detail was just amazing in this transfer. If you're a fan of this film, this is definitely a release that you should consider if you have a 4K setup, because you see so much more detail and the colors pop and a lot of other things involving uh, the work that a lot of the other cast and crew members put into this film. Those are just really eye-popping with this 4K release. The production design, which was always really jaw-dropping and gorgeous in a very gothic and memorable way by Anton Furst, it just comes to life in a way that honestly you have not seen before in home video. And it's just a movie that has a lot of really stunning visuals, and the 4K release really makes those visuals even more stunning, even more spectacular. The sound design I actually felt was not that bad. I thought the more modern gunshots and sound effects would bug me, but I didn't even really notice it. And it really wasn't anything that was that bad to me. In fact, the original intent by the sound editor, by the way, was not to have these old-timey gunshots and explosions. That was a last-minute thing. The only reason why the film sounded the way that it did is because Batman 89 was a movie that was not going to have any delays. It was going to come out at the release date, and there was not going to be any kind of changes to that plan. So as a result, you have some bits here and there that were a little rushed, which happens a lot with productions, surprisingly, where a film is highly anticipated, it's hyped, and a lot of people are looking forward to it, and all these theaters, they have secured dates and secured all these different sort of setups for a certain release date, and they're not going to budge, and neither is the studio. So you kind of have to work around it sometimes. And that's what happened. They had to work around the deadline, and they just put in some, I think it was like temp sound effects or something. Like they weren't. This was not the intent from the beginning. So this is a little closer to what they wanted from the film. So I can understand why some people prefer the original sound edit because it's what they grew up with. And trust me, I'm in the same boat, but I still like the sound design here. I think it still has a good sound mix. I think it's got some nice bass to it. I think it's got some nice dynamic, some good range. So overall, I don't think the sound on this release is as bad as some people have made it out to be. And features wise, it ports over the same features for the most part from all of the other releases. I do not think it carries over the features that were on the Diamond Lux edition. I don't know that 100% for sure though. And I have the Diamond Lux edition, but I don't really want to go and grab it right now. But I do remember that having features on it that were not available on the original Blu-ray release. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with this release of Batman 1989. It's a really eye-popping transfer. It's a film that is already one of those movies that you can't take your eyes off of, and then in 4K, it's just even more of an instance where you're glued to the screen. I will say this though, I don't really care for the minimalist design of the cover art. It's too bland, it's too boring, it doesn't really fit the film. Why can't we just use like the multitude of fan posters or one of the original posters or one of the temp posters for the cover art? Why does it have to be this really lazy Photoshop? I've always hated this. I do not like this cover at all. And I don't like that it's ported over. Well, ported over is maybe not the right word, but I don't like that it's carried over with all of the other 4K releases of these Batman films. Because then you get to Batman Returns, and yeah, it's a shiny slipcover, and I admit it looks a little bit better with the slipcover, but it's still lame. I would rather have the original theatrical poster or something, or new cover art. I mean, this is just lazy. I do not care for this, all this white. I guess it fits more with Batman Returns since it's a film that takes place during the winter, so all the white really does work in terms of the aesthetic, but it doesn't fit this at all. So it's just one of those things where, and I mean, and I really do hate how the Joker, like, you can't even fucking see him. He's like camouflage. He might as well be invisible because the Joker already has white face paint, and then he's like just white on white. So it's white face paint on a white background. But yeah, other than the cover art though, Batman Returns is a absolutely phenomenal release. This is easily the best the film has ever looked or sounded. I mean, I think the Batman 89 4K transfer is really solid, but this is on another level. I mean, just so many things about this transfer are terrific, from the level of detail to the colors to the black levels to a lot of the other things. This is, in my opinion, one of the best looking Batman films on 4K. It was already a film that had a lot of really uh, insane and really good looking visuals. And with the 4K resolution, it's almost like you can walk right into Gotham City during the winter, which is honestly a very cool experience. No pun intended. And the sound editing, the sound design, just top notch. This is a sound mix that has definitely got a lot of weight to it, and it ports over all of the other features from the previous Batman Returns releases. Uh, I think the quote here where it says it's sensational really does sum things up really well about it. It's a sensational release on 4K. If you're a fan of the film and you have a 4K setup, to me, it's a must buy. It's a must own because it is like watching the film with new eyes with the 4K transfer. Yeah, at the end of the day, I still really would recommend both of these releases if you have a 4K setup. They are definitely worth the money and worth your time if you're fans of these films. And thanks for watching this video, and as always, I'll see you later. See ya.